Well, thank you so much. I'm not sure I deserve all this nice introduction. But let me say, I'm not really a writer like Sister Amina. But if you ask my kids, they will say, yes, I'm a writer because I wrote too many checks for their education. Now, the idea of the book, as I mentioned in the preface, when I was growing up, I was helping my father in the business. And after school, I used to help him. And while I was working there, he had bought a set of hadiths, and we used to study it together. So two things which he really hammered on me, or all of us, all my siblings, and that is, one, don't borrow. And if you borrow, you must return. And secondly, don't hurt anybody's feelings, because these are two things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive. The person whom you have caused this harm is the only one who can forgive. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive with His mercy all other things, if I forget to pray or I did not go for Hajj or other things. But these two things, if I have not taken care of them in this world, then in the hereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take my good deeds and give it to that person. So that really left a very great impression on me, that I don't want to do these two things. And as I tell the story, that I used to go, we was born in a very small town in Punjab. Everybody knew us. So when I go to buy a notebook or something for my school, and I have only half of the money, the shopkeeper say, we know you and we'll get it tomorrow, no problem. But I'll say, no, keep it. I will go back and get the rest of the money before I can take this notebook. And the thought being, if I die on my way, my family will not know that I owe this money to this person, and hence I will have to deal with it in Roz Qiyamah. So that really have guided my life and made me find ways and means how we can live a life in Pakistan as well as here in the United States without entering into two of those things. So then when I thought of, so that guided my life. I was conducting some classes with the Fairfax Institute in Herndon, where I designed these techniques that we save, invest, and then spend, SIS. So in one of my classes, one sister came up to me and she sent me an email also. She said, you have given us a different perspective of money, and why don't you write a book which can benefit others? So in the acknowledgements, I acknowledge Sister Salma for giving me that advice. The next thought I had was, I know a little bit about Islam, but I don't know much about Christianity and Judaism, so I cannot be the authority on it. So let's try to see what are the commonalities in the Brahmic faith between these three faiths, and then of course to other faiths. So in the beginning of the book, I tried to share with you that Jews, Muslims, and Christians, we come from the same Father. Our basic beliefs are the same. We worship the same God, but we may have slightly different ways of worshiping the same God. And I tried to give a link how things have developed, like we talked about zakah. So tithing in Judaism is 10%, and it's very clearly stated, and I give you references. Then when it comes to Christianity, Christians who are devout Christians or Orthodox, they give 10%, but some others, they go from 0 to 10%. But the tithing which they pay goes to the church, and the church decides what to do with it. It is not specified where this money is to be spent. Then we come to Islam. We take a leap, and it's a very comprehensive system which I have described in the book. 2.5% on income which is over yearly expenses, that is nisab. 5% on the crop which is irrigated by rain, by man. 10% when it's irrigated by rain, because less the effort, more is the zakah. And similarly 20% on the fines. And it is very nicely detailed how to calculate. Then Quran tells us where the zakah or the sadaqat should be spent or should be given. And there are 8 categories which I have given in the book, starting with the poor, the needy, the zakah collectors, and so on and so forth. So that is pretty much the basis. As regard to earnings, many scholars or many people never talk, even in the churches, they don't talk about earnings. And somehow there is a feeling that money is dirty and therefore we should not talk about it. And perhaps why we think money is dirty, when we are little, we find a coin on the ground, and as a child or as a baby, the first temptation is we put it in our mouth. And the mom says, no, 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 don't do this, you know. So we probably have learned from there that the money is dirty. It is something not to be had. On the contrary, I have given you all the basis here that how we have to work and work hard and earn the most, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also guides our behavior and how to spend it. You see? Now, on the work, I have given you my personal motto, and that is, if someone can do my job, then I'm not doing my job. So this belief basically comes from several hadiths. One of the hadiths of Prophet ﷺ is that in everything there is a better way. So in anything we do, we can find and improve of doing the same thing. That's entrepreneurship. The other hadith says that for a Muslim or for a human being, today should be better than yesterday, and tomorrow should be better than today. So if we follow these two hadiths, then we got to improve, we got to do better. And that is really, I call it as entrepreneurship. Now, we often know saving, everybody knows we need to save. There is a saying, Benjamin Franklin has said, penny saved is penny earned. So I'm sure people have read my book. Do you agree with it? I don't. And why is that? Because when I earned a penny, I have to pay federal tax, the state tax, and then I go out to Kmart to buy something, I have to pay sales tax. So really, when penny is earned, it is really 0.6 pennies left. So to my calculations, you have to earn penny and a half, and you end up with a penny. So when you save a penny, you should reward yourself by saying that you have actually saved penny and a half. All right. So this is the, if you think in those terms, then every penny we spend, we say, oh, I'm spending penny and a half. This is not good thing to do. So in the book, I have given a table 2.1, which helps you to track your spending. Because one of the main thing is that at the end of the month, we say where the money went. Unlike my wife, she uses my credit card and she says, I never spent any money. So that we need to track where the spending is. So tracking is very crucial, because unless you know where the money is going, you cannot save, you cannot cut. So that table will help you to track your money, and then simply say, well, I'm spending too much money on having coffee at Starbucks. So maybe you want to buy Starbucks roast and bring it home and make it yourself rather than going to the shop. Then comes the saving and investing part. So saving is very, very crucial. So as I define it in the book, it is basically delaying your enjoyment for a later date. So if we spend it all today, we have nothing to enjoy tomorrow, or for retirement, or for children education, or for their marriages. But if we save and invest, we will have a lot more to enjoy it later. And I've given many examples, like in 70s when I was doing my PhD, on a research assistant, I used to get $313 a month. And in 5 years, I saved $10,000, invested that $10,000 in 75. Today, they are more than $1 million. And I've given you the table and the comparisons, how starting early and investing regularly will keep you far ahead of the other people who will wake up after 2 days, and then they start investing. And there is example table 3.1 tells you how someone invested only $16,000 or $10,000 and ends up with $1.2 million versus next person invests $16,000 but started late and ends up with $1 million, and the last person started very late, invested $78,000 and happened to have only $800,000. Now, as we talked about, we are alhamdulillah thankful and we're happy that we have Islamic mutual funds to invest, which are professionally managed, they are performing, and they are a good vehicle for us to open an account for $250. Almost everyone can afford that, and they are available for us to invest. Now, you can invest for going for Hajj. In the book, I provide a calculator. If you want to go for Hajj in 5 years, you basically determine the cost of Hajj, what will be after 5 years, and then you look at the inflation factor, investment factor, and it tells you how much you save on a monthly or on a yearly basis or lump sum. You get a tax refund, you just want to put it away, and when it grows to that level, you can just go for Hajj. Young people who are not married, there is no one who's going to finance your marriage. I don't know any bank who finance weddings. So you have to save for yourself, or if you happen to find a rich spouse, that's a different story. Now, on spending, obviously I don't have to tell you how to spend money. I'm sure you all know. But only thing I request is that we don't want to go to extremes, and we need to have a balance. And I give you many quotations from Quran and Hadith, which basically says that we don't want to be miserly, and on the other hand, we don't want to be extravagant. So we want to draw a balance. So now let's talk about zakah a little more. As I mentioned, I'm very passionate about this pillar because this is a unique pillar, and one of the category is to relieve people from debt. Now just think about it, how I'm going to find out that someone among us here has a debt which that person is not able to pay off. Nobody is going to get up and say, I'm so happy that I have $17,000 credit card debt. It's not going to happen. People have dignity, and there's a respect involved and humility involved. People are not proud of having credit card debt, but they are ashamed. So what does this mean? This means that we as a community have to be very closely involved, intimately involved with each other, that we know the situation of other person in the community. And that's the only way we'll find out. So it involves us to be involved in the community, to know who deserves zakah and who does not need zakah. And so that pillar really calls for, in my mind, involvement in the community, us to know each other, us to meet more often and find out. And in my mind, if we find out somebody is deserving zakah, it's better that we go out and seek out that person rather than that person coming and begging to us. I believe very strongly giving while living. In our wills, we are permitted to write or will or bequest or wasiya up to 1/3 of the assets whomever we wish. And that has to be a non-inheritor. We cannot give more to our son or more to our daughter. It has to be non-inheritors. And that 1/3 could be a charitable entity, it could be MA, it could be GTV, it could be your friend, it could be your teacher, whomever you wish you can give. Now let's say that you want to give that 1/3 to help poor in the community. Good cause. Now think about it. That person or poor people have to wait until you die. While they're hungry today, their needs are not met today. So what will be the consequence of it? I make it like a joke. What is the consequence of poor people sitting there? They're praying for me to die so they can get the money. That's not very comfortable. So why should we wait to give out a portion of our wealth for the poor and the needy? So I'm arguing that we should do it while we are living, and especially when I found this hadith, which basically says that giving 1 dirham while you are alive is better than 1,000 dirham given upon death. So why would we lose such a ajr of giving now than later? Of course, giving now while we are living, it has its lots of benefits, and that is we can see how the money has been used. If you have given to an orphan, send him to school or her to school, you can see the results of it. If that kid did not turn out to be good, you can give it to someone else. You can, sponsor a different project. So you can direct, redirect, you can think of other priorities to be fulfilled rather than, delaying and waiting. Now and there is no requirement that we got to have inheritance. We got to have money when you die, so it is divided according to Sharia schedule. Only condition there is that you should not give away everything that your children are begging from other people. So if children got education and they got the good jobs and they are on their own, then the only obligation in my mind we have is to help the extended community. And as much as we can, of course, we need to keep some money for retirement. And then in the last chapter, I talk about wills. Wills are very important. We should all write our wills. Yeah. So many times people feel that, well, I don't have anything, why should I write a will? That's not true. Will is a direction, is a directive to your family how you want to be buried, how your debt has to be paid. Nobody knows how much money you owe to someone. If there is a kafarat, you have pledged a kafara and you have not paid that. Unpaid mahar, the mahar which you had agreed to but has not been paid, that's an obligation, that's a debt. So that has to be, so you are the only person who can say that these are the things which have to be satisfied before it can be distributed. Then how do you want to be buried? Where you want to be buried? And of course, we don't know where we'll die. If there is no will, people may not know you are even a Muslim or not. And let me just digress for a second and share with you why the wills are so crucial and a directive is very crucial. I was attending Jummah prayer in a different town called Winchester. The khatib was just crying and crying and crying, and he shared a story that his uncle married someone of a different faith, and uncle passed away, and the wife, who has the right to do whatever she wants to do with the body, wants to cremate. And this poor nephew is crying because he has no standing. He doesn't have the power of attorney, doesn't have a will, and he's hoping and praying that he's not cremated. And I don't know what happened, but a small piece of paper which is very simple to write, you could actually decide what you want to do. Of course, if you have underage children, it is extremely important that you appoint a guardian in your lifetime, because otherwise court will appoint a guardian and most likely will be a person they have never seen and probably is of a different faith and may not know how to raise your children. So this is a God-given right to each one of us, and we must just take the time to write it. Then there are things which we should not do in a will, which are described here. And basically I conclude the book talking about various trust, revocable trust, irrevocable trust, and the family limited partnership. Family limited partnership is very simple to form, and it is described there. It basically, a family as a family, parents and the children enter into a legal document, and you can even register it. And that document defines the relationship of each of the partners. And you are basically tying the financial future of your children together. So they have to learn how to live together, work together, and be able to solve their differences together. In our case, one of the grown-up child is using more money. So the third child is complaining and says, you know, how come Baji is using more money than that she's taking out of my share? And of course, we have to sit down and rationalize. And I will ask, you know, if Baji needs money, won't you give it to her? Yeah, of course I will give it to her. Well, that's what it is, you know. So we train them to have issues and find ways to resolve them. And if we can train them to resolve now, then when we are no longer around, they will be able to resolve those differences. And at the end, I seek your prayers. I request you to pray for me if you found that this book is useful. I'm not making any money out of it. I have told the publisher to lower the price so more people can afford it and more people can buy it. And if there is any money, I'm going to contribute to a charity. Thank you so much. Yeah, I will be here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mirza. And by the way, the book, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, I should have had it up here, is right here. And it is a beautifully designed book. It's called 5 Pillars, again, of Prosperity. And I just want to read quickly. We had a very distinguished speaker here maybe a couple months back who actually wrote the blurb, I guess, on the front cover. Very, very distinguished American Professor John Esposito. Let me just quickly read to you what he wrote. Dr. M. Yaqub Mirza has given us a unique work. I can think of nothing quite like it, bridging faith, economic principles, and practical wisdom. 5 Pillars of Prosperity offers sound guidance from a Muslim perspective on the essentials of faith-based wealth building. So this is a very distinguished, first of all, he's actually non-Muslim, very distinguished professor, excuse me. And so it just shows to you, one, how we're bridging the gap. It's not merely only for Muslims, but it's something much, much more. You know, there's so many questions living in this country we have. For example, I was questioning, what about day trading, for example, right? Or foreign exchange, getting into foreign exchange markets. And there's so many things that are happening today, derivatives, and there's so much confusion. And so the goal, of course, is to provide greater clarity so we have better direction. So we also feel every day we wake up, we can look in the mirror, we're proud of what we've done in raising our kids and giving them a good life. And at the same time, we feel, you know, we're not out of balance, out of whack, but rather we're there. So these are all things that, as a community, we have to constantly continue to question and answer. And this is, I think, a pioneering book, inshallah. At least that's from my perspective. I was actually looking for something like this for myself because I was confused. So that said, there's actually a number of books up there. Dr. Said, what are we doing with the books in terms of? By the way, what is it? $20. $20. So the book, before you leave, if you'd like to, it's $20. I don't think you're going to get this just yet. Well, I don't know if it's already in the bookstores. I'm sure it actually has already begun. Whether it's in this one or not, I'm not quite sure. But it's something for you to consider. But that said, let me go ahead into some of the questions with your patience. Okay. So one, what is your opinion on exchange-traded funds? Is investing in an ETF smarter than investing in a mutual fund? Why or why not? So should I read all the questions and we can answer them all together at once? Okay. And by the way, is there anybody else who has questions? Please feel free to bring it up. Can somebody, thank you. The second question is, I get the interest back in my tax return. How can I do it if I invest without interest? So let's start with those two questions, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
I can read the question and answer them.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. So the first question on the ETF. Personally, I like managed funds, index funds or ETFs. They are there, but they are not managed. So far we haven't built a computer which is as smart as human beings. So managed funds have done better overall than the index funds. So that's what I would say. As regard to the question on the interest on the tax return, interest to me is something which is not desirable. We don't want it. And what do you do with something we don't want it? You can throw it, or you can give it to a poor person or to a charity. And that's the only way you can cleanse it. Sometimes you end up getting interest, and what you do is just give it out to a charity. Just a joke, in India, they had got some interest, so what they did, instead of, they made the bathrooms of the mosque with the interest money. So that's one approach. I'm trying to read the question. In a country like Pakistan, where 80–85% are very poor, 10 to 15% are mildly well-to-do, 2 to 3% super rich. Even if all super rich, and I'm trying to read here, mildly well-to-do people pay zakah, it will not make much difference in poor people's life. Give a false impression about zakah. Instead, we should work on making people more. Yes, I absolutely agree that work is a fundamental thing that Muslims or all people should do. And I argue that in my book. I'm not trying to say that people should be lazy and they should just sit down and wait for someone to give them a handout. But at the same time, when everyone is working and more people are working and they're working hard, more zakah will become due. And once more zakah becomes due, it will help to eliminate poverty. And I firmly believe in it. I give you an example in the book. In our own community, I made a rough calculation based on how many families we have, average salary, and the amount of zakah which is collected in our Islamic center, which is about $600,000. So my calculation is that that is 1/10 of the amount where zakah should be collected. I realize some people send it, give it to other people on their own, they don't give it to the center, but even then, it is 1/10. So my wife, she raises $1.3, $1.4 million to help the poor and the needy in the area of Herndon. So I asked her this question: if you get 10 times more of this amount, what will you do? And her answer was, I can change this whole area and there shouldn't be any poor in that city. Now, talking about the poverty, our area, as Dr. Aga Said will tell you, is almost the richest area than Hollywood in the United States. On the average income per capita in the United States, about $44,000. In our area, it's about $63,000. Each Ramadan, we give food to poor people. And I have seen 350 people standing in line, waiting for the food to be given to them. So poverty is there. And I think more people work, harder they work, more money they make, more zakah will be due, and we can, over time, eliminate poverty. I gave a talk at the United Nations. It was how to eradicate poverty and illiteracy in Africa. And I made a case that if zakah money is properly calculated and is distributed, it should help to eradicate both. We should not have illiterate people, as well as we should not have poor people. And the history has shown, during the time of Islam, there was no one who was deserving zakah. Yeah, this is a good question. That's my whole life. From PhD in physics to finance, why the change? In my mind, it's always timing. I looked at a chart for 120 years in the United States on the average. Inflation adjusted, there has been very little change in the value of the homes. Now, of course, you will tell me some people bought a house in 2000, they sold it 2006, and they tripled their money. Yes, it happened. But that's the once a lifetime, and there was no reason for that to happen. Salaries did not triple, except for the gas prices and the houses prices, they doubled. There was no good reason for it, and we had millions of dollars of cash. We did not invest in real estate at that time, and thank God now they're coming down. The offices we have, Aga Said has seen them. They were sold for $1.3 million. We bought them for $670 from a bank. and they were bought at or sold at 2006, and we bought them 3 years later. So real estate is all about location. Yes, you can hit lucky. There was a dip when these prices were coming, market bottom. From there, the market has gone up about, I would say, about 15%. But where it's going to go next, God knows. So living, house for living, absolutely. You should have one. But trying to buy and rent it and be at the mercy of someone else, you are entering into a small business for which you may not have any expertise. And that's my experience. And all the real estates which we have is more of commercial and others. Right now we are making warehouses. Why warehouses? The trend has changed. Why the trend has changed? Because of internet buying. So internet buying is requiring more storage, less office space. So our buildings are empty, but we are building storage so people can have inventory, have a website, and be able to sell. Any more questions? Yeah.
Any last questions? All righty, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously this is just the beginning. How many books again do you have, Dr. Mirza, related to finance?
Oh, this is my
first one.
Probably the only one.
Yeah. And hopefully the one of many, inshallah, as well. So we look forward to learning more, and this is a part of a process. Before I end, let me just give special thanks to Dr. Aga Saeed. He basically was organizing this from his home and everything on mostly, much of it from, in his condition, and this is something that gives him a great deal of actually satisfaction and love because he enjoys it. It's something he wants to do to help the community, and he's the one that organizes all this. So everybody, if you can just please give a applause for Dr. Aga Saeed. You can't believe how absolutely complex all the small things and working all these things, but this is something that gives him joy, and this is why he continues doing it, and inshallah we will all continue to gain benefit from it as well, and also help as well, and continue that work inshallah as well. So that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and thank Dr. Yaqub Mirza one more time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a good night.